Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Old Coins News. Today we are going to talk about 4 interesting Roosevelt dime coins that many collectors still search for. These coins are the 1965 dime, 1966 dime, 1967 dime, and the 1973 D dime. Some of these coins were made during an important period in American coin history, and a few rare varieties can be worth much more than their face value. So make sure you watch this video until the end, because one of these dimes in your pocket could actually be worth a surprising amount of money. Let's start with the 1965 Roosevelt dime. The 1966 Roosevelt dime is an interesting coin in American numismatic history, because it was produced during a major change in U.S. coinage. In the mid-1960s, the United States faced a serious coin shortage, and the government decided to remove silver from dimes and quarters. Because of this change, the 1966 dime became part of the first generation of modern clad coins that replaced the traditional silver composition used for decades. Although millions of these coins were produced, collectors still study them for their historical importance, minting characteristics, and possible errors. The design of the 1966 Roosevelt dime features the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse front of the coin. Roosevelt was the 32nd President of the United States and played a crucial role during the Great Depression and World War II. After his death in 1945, the U.S. government decided to honor him on the dime because of his strong support for the March of Dimes, a charity that fought polio. The obverse of the coin includes the word liberty along the left side, the motto "In God We Trust" near the bottom, and the year 1966 on the right side. The portrait was designed by the famous sculptor John R. Sinek, who was also the chief engraver of the United States Mint. The reverse, back, of the coin displays a symbolic design representing peace, strength, and victory. In the center is a torch, which symbolizes liberty and enlightenment. On the left side of the torch is an olive branch, representing peace, and on the right side is an oak branch, symbolizing strength and independence. Around the edge of the reverse appear the inscriptions United States of America and 1 dime. The motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, is written across the middle of the coin above the torch. One of the most notable aspects of the 1966 Roosevelt dime is its composition. Before 1965, dimes were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. But starting in 1965, the United States changed the composition to a copper-nickel-clad structure. The 1966 dime therefore contains 75% copper and 25% nickel on the outer layers, bonded to a pure copper core. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. This change allowed the government to produce coins more cheaply and reduce the hoarding of silver coins by the public. Another unique feature of the 1966 dime is the absence of a mint mark. During the coin shortage from 1965 to 1967, the U.S. Mint removed mint marks from coins to discourage collectors from hoarding newly minted coins. Therefore, even though the 1966 dimes were produced mainly in Philadelphia, they do not show the usual P mint mark that modern coins display. In terms of mintage, the 1966 Roosevelt dime was produced in very large numbers. More than 920 million coins were struck, making it one of the most common dimes in circulation. Because of this high mintage, most 1966 dimes are not extremely valuable today if they are in circulated condition. Usually, a worn example is worth only face value, 10 cents, or slightly more to collectors. However, the value can increase significantly depending on the condition and grade of the coin. Coins that are in uncirculated condition, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can be worth several dollars. Coins graded in very high mint state conditions by professional grading services may sell for $10, $20, or even more, especially if they have strong luster and minimal marks. Collectors are also interested in error coins from 1966. Some dimes were struck with minting errors, such as off-center strikes, doubled dies, clipped planchets, or missing clad layers. These unusual mistakes can make the coin far more valuable than normal examples. Depending on the rarity and visibility of the error, some 1966 dime error coins have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars in the collector market. The 1973D Roosevelt dime is a modern American 10-cent coin that is part of the long-running Roosevelt dime series. This coin represents the continuation of the clad coinage era in the United States after the removal of silver from dimes in 1965. Although the 1973D dime is a common circulation coin, it still holds importance for collectors because of its history, design, mint production, and the possibility of valuable mint errors. The obverse front of the 1973D Roosevelt dime features the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who served as the President of the United States from 1933 until his death in 1945. Roosevelt led the country through the Great Depression and most of World War II, making him one of the most influential leaders in American history. Shortly after his death, the United States decided to honor him by placing his image on the dime. This tribute was also connected to his support for the March of Dimes, a charity created to fight polio, a disease that Roosevelt himself suffered from. The design of the Roosevelt dime was created by John R. Sinnock, who served as the chief engraver of the United States Mint. On the front of the coin, the word Liberty appears along the left side of Roosevelt's portrait. The national motto, "In God We Trust," is written below the neck of the portrait, while the date 1973 appears to the right. On the 1973D coin, a small D mint mark is visible near the date, indicating that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. The reverse, back of the 1973D dime, contains a symbolic design that represents freedom, peace, and national strength. In the center is a torch, which symbolizes liberty and enlightenment. On the left side of the torch is an olive branch representing peace, and on the right side is an oak branch symbolizing strength and independence. Around the outer edge of the reverse are the inscriptions United States of America and 1 dime. Across the middle of the design appears the Latin phrase E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, which represents the unity of the United States. The composition of the 1973D Roosevelt dime reflects the modern clad structure adopted after 1965. Unlike earlier dimes that contain 90% silver, this coin is made from a copper core, sandwiched between 2 outer layers of copper-nickel alloy. The outer layers contain 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its silver-like appearance. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and features a reeded edge with small vertical grooves. This durable composition allows the coin to withstand heavy circulation over many years. In terms of production, the 1973D Roosevelt dime was minted in very large quantities. The Denver Mint produced more than 455 million coins for circulation that year. Because of this extremely high mintage, the coin is considered very common, and most examples found in everyday change are not particularly rare. However, the value of a 1973D dime can increase, depending on its condition and quality. Coins that have been heavily circulated usually remain worth only their face value of 10 cents. But uncirculated examples with bright mint luster can be worth several dollars to collectors. Coins graded in very high mint state, MS grades, especially those certified by professional grading services, may be worth $10 to $30 or more, depending on their quality and preservation. Collectors are also very interested in mint errors found on some 1973D dimes. Occasionally, mistakes occur during the minting process, producing unusual coins that become highly collectible. These errors can include double strikes, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and missing clad layers. If such an error is clear and dramatic, the coin's value can increase significantly, sometimes reaching 50, 100, or even more, depending on the rarity and demand among collectors. The 1973D Roosevelt dime therefore represents a typical but historically significant example of modern U.S. coinage. While it is a common coin used in everyday transactions, it still reflects the long tradition of honoring Franklin D. Roosevelt and symbolizes important American values such as liberty, peace, and unity. For coin collectors, it remains an interesting piece to study, especially when found in high-grade condition or with unusual minting errors. The 1965 Roosevelt dime is one of the most historically important coins in modern American coinage. It marks the beginning of a major transition in the United States mint's production methods, because it was the first year that the dime was made without silver. For decades before 1965, dimes were produced with 90% silver, but rising silver prices and a nationwide coin shortage forced the government to change the metal composition. As a result, the 1965 Roosevelt dime became the first clad dime ever issued for circulation in the United States. The front obverse of the coin features the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who served as the President of the United States from 1933 to 1945. Roosevelt was a major figure in American history because he guided the country through the Great Depression and World War II. After his death in April 1945, the United States decided to honor him by placing his portrait on the dime. Another reason for choosing Roosevelt was his strong support for the March of Dimes, a charity organization created to fight polio. Roosevelt himself had been affected by polio, so this image on the dime became a symbolic tribute to his legacy and his efforts to support medical research. The Roosevelt dime design was created by John R. Sinnock, who served as the chief engraver of the United States Mint. On the obverse side of the 1965 coin, Roosevelt's portrait faces left. The word liberty appears along the left side of the coin, while the national motto, "In God We Trust," is written below the neck of the portrait. The date 1965 appears on the right side. One interesting feature of coins from 1965 to 1967 is that they do not show mint marks, even though they were produced at multiple mint facilities. This was done to discourage collectors from hoarding coins during the coin shortage of the mid-1960s. The reverse back of the 1965 Roosevelt dime contains a symbolic design that represents liberty, peace, and strength. In the center of the design is a torch, which symbolizes freedom and enlightenment. On the left side of the torch is an olive branch, representing peace, while on the right side is an oak branch, symbolizing strength and national stability. Around the outer edge of the coin appear the inscriptions United States of America and one dime. The Latin phrase e pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, is written across the middle of the design above the torch. The most significant feature of the 1965 Roosevelt dime is its metal composition. Before 1965, all dimes contained 90% silver and 10% copper. But the rising price of silver caused people to hoard coins and melt them for their metal value. To solve this problem, the U.S. government introduced a new clad composition. The 1965 dime has a pure copper core with two outer layers made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This structure gives the coin a silver-colored appearance while reducing production costs. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and features a reeded edge with small grooves around the rim. The production of the 1965 Roosevelt dime was extremely high because the government needed large numbers of coins to solve the nationwide shortage. More than 1.8 billion dimes dated 1965 were produced, making it one of the most heavily minted dimes in American history. Even though the coins were made at several mint facilities, including Philadelphia Mint and Denver Mint, none of them carry mint marks because of the special policy during that time. Because of this massive production, most 1965 Roosevelt dimes are very common today and are usually worth only their face value of 10 cents if they are worn from circulation. However, coins in uncirculated condition, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can be worth a few dollars depending on their quality and luster. Coins graded in very high mint stake grades by professional grading companies can sometimes sell for $10, $20, or even higher. Collectors also search for rare mint errors among 1965 dimes. Occasionally, mistakes occurred during the minting process, creating unusual coins that are highly desirable. These errors may include off-center strikes, doubled dies, clipped planchets, die cracks, or missing clad layers. One of the most famous and valuable varieties is the extremely rare 1965 dime struck on a silver planchet, which was accidentally made using leftover silver blanks from 1964. Such rare error coins have sold for thousands of dollars in the collector market. The 1965 Roosevelt dime therefore represents a major turning point in the history of U.S. coinage. It symbolizes the moment when the United States moved away from precious metal coins and began producing modern clad coins for everyday circulation. Even though it is common in most collections, it remains historically important and continues to attract the attention of coin collectors and numismatists around the world. The 1967 Roosevelt dime is an important coin in the history of modern American currency. It belongs to the famous Roosevelt dime series, which began in 1946 and continues to be produced today. The 1967 dime was minted during a period when the United States was dealing with a major coin shortage, and the government had recently changed the metal composition of many coins. Because of these changes, the 1967 Roosevelt dime represents the early years of the clad coinage era, when silver was removed from circulating dimes and replaced with a copper-nickel alloy. The design of the coin honors Franklin D. Roosevelt, one of the most influential leaders in American history. Roosevelt served as president from 1933 until 1945 and led the nation through the Great Depression and most of World War II. After his death in 1945, the United States decided to commemorate him on the dime. This tribute was also connected to his support for the March of Dimes, a charity organization dedicated to fighting polio. Roosevelt himself suffered from polio, so placing his portrait on the dime became a meaningful symbol of his legacy and his dedication to medical research. The front side, or obverse of the 1967 Roosevelt dime, shows Roosevelt's left-facing portrait. The word Liberty appears along the left edge of the coin, while the national motto, "In God We Trust," is written just below the neck of the portrait. The date 1967 appears on the right side. The coin's design was created by John R. Sinnock, who served as the chief engraver of the United States Mint at the time. His initials JS can be found near the base of Roosevelt's neck. One interesting feature of the 1967 Roosevelt dime is that it does not have a mint mark. Normally, American coins include a small letter indicating where they were minted. However, between 1965 and 1967, the United States Mint removed mint marks from circulating coins. This decision was made because collectors were hoarding coins, which worsened the nationwide coin shortage. By removing mint marks, the government hoped to reduce coin collecting activity and encourage the coins to remain in circulation. Even though the 1967 dime does not show a mint mark, many of these coins were produced at facilities such as the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The reverse side of the coin contains a symbolic design representing liberty, peace, and strength. At the center of the reverse is a torch, which represents freedom and enlightenment. To the left of the torch is an olive branch, symbolizing peace, and to the right is an oak branch, representing strength and stability. Around the outer edge of the reverse are the inscriptions United States of America and One Dime. Across the middle of the design appears the Latin motto E pluribus unum, which translates to out of many, one. This phrase reflects the unity of the states that form the United States of America. The composition of the 1967 Roosevelt dime reflects the modern coinage system adopted after 1965. Earlier dimes were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. but the rising price of silver caused the U.S. government to remove silver from circulating coins. As a result, the 1967 dime is made from a clad metal structure consisting of a pure copper core sandwiched between two outer layers of copper-nickel alloy. The outer layers contain 75% copper and 25% nickel, which gives the coin its bright silver-colored appearance. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and features a reeded edge with small vertical grooves around the rim. The mintage of the 1967 Roosevelt dime was extremely high because the government was trying to produce enough coins to solve the shortage problem. More than 2.2 billion coins were struck with the 1967 date, making it one of the most common dimes in American circulation. Because of this high production number, most 1967 dimes found today are still very common and generally worth only their face value of 10 cents if they are heavily circulated. However, the value of a 1967 dime can increase depending on its condition and grade. Coins that remain in uncirculated condition, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, may be worth several dollars to collectors. High-grade coins, with strong luster and minimal marks, can sometimes sell for $5 to $20 or more, especially if they are certified by professional grading services. Collectors also search for mint errors and unusual varieties among 1967 Roosevelt dimes. Occasionally, mistakes during the minting process produced unusual coins that are highly collectible. Examples of these errors include off-center strikes, doubled die designs, clipped planchets, die cracks, and missing clad layers. Such coins can become very valuable depending on the rarity and the strength of the error. Some dramatic error examples have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars in the collector market. So those were the 4 Roosevelt dimes we looked at today: 1965, 1966, 1967, and 1973D. Even though many of these coins are common, checking your change carefully can sometimes lead to an exciting discovery. If you enjoy learning about rare and valuable coins, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other coin collectors. And remember, the next valuable coin could already be in your pocket. Thank you for watching Old Coins News.